How can a modern Boeing 777, just one of the biggest planes out there, simply vanish?
Yeah.
Without a trace?
It really does feel almost unbelievable, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because we always say, everything lost leaves a trace, and yet here we are. It's been a decade.
10 years since Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 just disappeared. 239 people.
So this deep dive, this is our mission, really. We want to lay out what we actually know. Explore some genuinely fascinating, new potential evidence that's come up.
Right.
And maybe with that, hopefully, we can help persuade the authorities to restart the search.
For the families, they need closure.
Exactly. Finally get some answers.
And that's really where this gets a new kind of urgency. We're not just rehashing old facts.
Yeah.
We're looking at these fresh possibilities thanks to, technology that's been enhanced, refined.
Better tech now.
Yeah, we're at a point where it could genuinely give us some breakthrough clues about where that plane actually ended up.
So this is the story of MH370, what we know.
And maybe what we're just starting to learn now.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's set the scene. It's March 7th, 2014.
Just a routine night duty, really.
Right. Flight 370, KL to Beijing, standard 5.5-hour flight, roughly.
Boeing 777. Weather looked fine. Takeoff, landing.
There was that mention of a jet stream, potential turbulence mid-route.
Yeah, a strong one, but nothing extraordinary. Just something noted in the plan.
Okay, and fuel, they topped up.
Yep, 49,100 kilos. That gave them about 7 hours and 31 minutes of endurance.
7.5 hours.
Yeah.
But the flight was only meant to be 5.5.
Exactly. A good 2 hours extra.
Why is that extra fuel so significant later on?
Well, it gives you options, right?
Yeah.
Normally, it's just a safety margin, comfortable.
Okay.
But if things go wrong, that extra endurance, it becomes critical. It means the plane could fly for a long time after anyone heard from it.
Which is exactly what happened.
It's exactly what happened. And it's why the potential search area became so enormous, just based on fuel.
Right. Okay, let's talk about the crew in the cockpit. The captain.
53 years old, a real veteran, 33 years with Malaysia Airlines.
Wow.
Over 18,000 flight hours total, more than 8,600 just on the 777.
So he knew that plane inside out.
Absolutely. He was a type rating instructor, an examiner on the 777 even.
And his personal life.
Yeah.
Anything stand out?
Well, he was married, 3 kids, involved in local politics, opposition party, delivered groceries sometimes, tinkered with electronics.
Had a YouTube channel?
Yeah, and that home flight simulator, that got a lot of attention.
Because it was wiped.
Wiped weeks before, yeah. But they found some manually entered waypoints in a backup. Nothing conclusive, linking it directly to MH370's path, mind you.
But interesting.
Definitely interesting, but financially stable, no known health issues, solid reputation.
Okay. And the first officer?
Much younger, 27, single, far less experience.
How much less?
About 2,800 total hours. But get this, only 39 hours on the Boeing 777.
39. Wow. So this was basically a training flight for him.
Exactly. His transition onto the 777. Described as a nice guy, stable finances, no big life changes recently.
So you've got this super experienced captain, instructor level, and a first officer who's very new to this specific aircraft type. What does that power gradient, that difference, mean in the cockpit?
Well, you're hitting on a good point. There's always a power gradient, but here it was, particularly steep.
Because the captain was the authority instructor.
Precisely. But, and this is important, there was zero indication of any personal problems between them.
Nothing suggesting friction or issues?
No reason to think either wasn't ready for duty. They had had their rest, licenses, medicals, all perfectly in order.
Just like a standard professional crew?
By all counts, yes.
And the plane itself? The 777?
Oh, a majestic Boeing 777-200ER, Rolls-Royce engines.
Condition?
Perfect working condition, apparently. Routine maintenance just before the flight involved topping up the flight crew oxygen cylinder.
Okay, oxygen topped up. Got it. Keep that in mind.
Definitely keep that in mind.
Crew. Anything unusual there?
Not really. Several tons of mangosteens, fruit. They checked for leaks, standard procedure.
And the batteries. There was talk about lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah, nearly 2.5 tons. But they were individually packaged, standard cargo, thoroughly investigated and ruled out completely.
So not the cost.
That's why not the cost.
Passengers.
227 people, 14 different nations, mostly Chinese, 153 of them, then 50 Malaysians.
And those 2 with stolen passports.
Ah, yes. That caused a stir initially. Turned out they were Iranians, likely seeking asylum. Confirmed, not a threat.
Okay, so total on board. 239 souls.
239.
All right, so the stage is set. 40 minutes past midnight, March 8th, MH370 gets clearance.
Clear for takeoff from Kuala Lumpur. First officers flying. Captain's on the radio. Airborne at 00.42.
Okay, now we need to talk about ACARS, Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System.
Right. Think of it like the plane's automated texting system.
Yeah.
Sends updates, engine health, position reports back to the airline.
Via VHF radio or satellite?
Exactly. Via VHF or satellite using the STCOM system. That's the key part for later.
And those initial SATCOM signals, what do they tell us before things went dark?
Well, the SATCOM actually booted up and linked even before takeoff, around 23.54. It even captured the first officer making inputs around 23.56.
So it was working perfectly fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the plane's digital heartbeat, always talking unless someone tells it to stop or cuts the power.
And you mentioned something about 2 antennas.
Yeah, it's a detail, but the SATCOM uses different antennas depending on whether the main navigation system is fully up. Keep that in the back of your mind.
Okay. So takeoff normal, captain handles radio calls.
Yep, switches to Lumpur radar, gets cleared direct to a waypoint called IGOER, climbs to flight level 350, so 35,000 feet.
And his voice on the radio.
Completely relaxed and routine. That's what the transcripts and recordings show.
Okay, to understand what happens next, we probably need a quick primer on radar.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing, right?
Exactly. Good point. There are basically 2 types you need to know about. First is primary radar, raw radar. It's simple, sends out a pulse, waits for a bounce back, like sonar, but with radio waves.
Who uses that mainly?
Military, mostly. It sees anything that reflects the signal, but it's limited, doesn't get good altitude or speed data.
Just a blip.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Then you have secondary radar. That's what air traffic control uses. What powers Flight Radar 24?
How does that work?
It relies on a transponder on the plane actively sending back a signal when interrogated by the radar.
Ah, so it's a conversation.
Sort of, yeah. And because the plane is sending data, you get much more info, precise position, altitude, speed, flight number.
Crucially, if that transponder stops working.
Then secondary radar goes blind. Those flight tracking apps go dark. The collision avoidance system, TCIS, doesn't work either. The plane becomes invisible to that system.
Right, and this is exactly where things start to get weird.
Very weird.
The captain calls in level at 35,000 feet, 01.14. Routine.
Standard procedure. A courtesy call.
But then, 7 minutes later, he calls again, reporting the exact same thing, level 350.
Yeah. The official report flags it as anomalous, but kind of dismisses it.
But it feels significant, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why call twice? What could that second call suggest? Especially given what happened next.
It's one of those subtle things that, in hindsight, feels loaded. It's not just repeating himself. If you listen closely to the recordings,
Yeah.
The first call, totally relaxed. The second one, he just sounds a bit busy, preoccupied.
Like his attention was divided.
Possibly, like he was maybe away from the radio, came back, wasn't sure if he'd made the call, or just making it while doing something else. It hints his focus might have already shifted.
And shortly after that second call.
The ACAR system sends its last complete routine message via SATCOM.
And then.
Yeah.
They...
Complete silence from ACARs for 1 hour and 17 minutes.
Wow. Over an hour of digital silence.
That's super important. It's not just a glitch, it's a profound silence.
In the very last voice transmission.
01.19.24. Lumpur ATC hands them off to Ho Chi Minh Control in Vietnam.
And the captain's response.
Good night, Malaysia 370. That was it.
Just, good night. Did he read back the frequency for Ho Chi Minh?
No, he didn't. Which again is slightly unusual, not unheard of, but it adds to that picture of him maybe being distracted or busy.
So, good night, Malaysia 370. And then, 5 seconds after passing that waypoint, IGRI.
Poof. Gone from secondary radar. Just vanishes.
Right at the handover point between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace.
The timing is impeccable if you were planning something.
Okay, that disappearance of secondary radar, that's the transponder.
And that's the transponder being switched off.
Switched off, not failed.
Almost certainly switched off. It requires manually turning a knob in the cockpit from the normal mode, Terra, to standby or altitude off.
And it wasn't instantaneous.
No, it took 37 seconds for the signal to fully disappear from all secondary systems. That points strongly to a manual action, not a sudden electrical failure.
Okay, so transponder off. But the primary radar, the military one, could still see it.
For a while, yes. And what it saw was unmistakable. The aircraft stopped following its flight plan. Instead of turning right towards the next waypoint, BITOD.
It turned left.
A sharp, almost 180-degree left turn back towards Malaysia.
Whoa! And this turn, was it smooth, like autopilot?
Apparently not. Boeing tried to replicate it in their simulator. They couldn't get the autopilot to make such a tight turn. Meaning it was likely hand-flown, manually flown with the autopilot disconnected, using a much steeper bank angle than the system would command.
Okay, let's connect the dots here. Transponder manually switched off right at an airspace boundary, immediately followed by a sharp hand-flown turn-off course.
The only reasonable conclusion, really, is that someone had deliberately started interfering with the flight's path. On purpose.
And the location, IGRI, just before the handover.
Perfect timing to maximize confusion. The Malaysian controller would assume Ho Chi Minh had contact. Ho Chi Minh would be waiting for the plane to check in, creates a delay.
And they avoided Thai airspace.
Skirted right around the edge of the Thai Air Defense Identification Zone. Whoever did this knew the airspace structure intimately.
Knew where the gaps were.
Exactly. Suggests this wasn't impulsive. It suggests careful planning. Very careful planning.
Okay, so after this U-turn, heading back southwest, where did it go?
The primary radar tracks show it flying a pretty straight line, roughly towards a navigation beacon, a VOR, near Penang, back over Malaysia.
Was it still being hand-flown?
The small deviations in the tracks suggest, yes, consistent with manual flight, not the precision of autopilot.
Plane altitude, speed?
Hard to say precisely from primary radar alone, maybe a slight descent, but it's not definitive.
And this is around the time the first officer's phone pinged a tower.
Yeah, a mobile phone mast on Penang, operated by Selcom, briefly detected a signal from his phone.
Could he have been trying to make a call?
It's possible. No call connected, no data transmitted, but the phone briefly registered on the network. It's tantalizing. Cell signals don't usually reach cruising altitude, maybe up to 30,000 feet max, vertically. So it could indicate the plane was lower, or maybe just a fleeting connection.
Okay, and another key event.
Yeah.
The S8COM loss.
Right, at 02.03. The ground station tried to send an ACARS message to the plane. Routine stuff.
Yeah.
No reply. No acknowledgement. Now, if ACARS itself had just failed or been turned off in the cockpit...
The SATCOM terminal should still respond, right?
Yeah.
Just say can't deliver.
Exactly. It should still establish a link. The fact that it didn't respond at all strongly suggests the S8COM system itself lost power.
Lost power. How would that happen?
Well, this is where insights from very experienced 777 pilots come in. They believe this sequence points to a manual shutdown of all main power sources.
All of them, like deselecting the main engine generators, the backup generator.
Yes. That action would trigger the APU, the auxiliary power unit, to automatically start, which would then also need to be manually stopped. Shutting that down would then deploy the RAT, the ram air turbine.
The little propeller that drops down.
Exactly. Emergency power. It powers only the absolute essentials. Critical flight instruments, some navigation.
But not the autopilot.
Not the autopilot. And crucially, not the SCOM, not the ACARS, not most cabin systems. Everything except emergency lights would go dark.
Wow. Plunging the plane into near total darkness, electrically speaking.
Precisely. A drastic, deliberate act.
Which brings us to that awful, difficult question. What about everyone else on board? The passengers, the other crew?
Yeah, we have to be clear. We really don't know what happened to them. This is a theory based on the circumstances.
Okay, what's the theory?
The theory is that whoever was in control might have deliberately depressurized the cabin by opening the main outflow valves. This would vent the cabin air rapidly, while possibly keeping the air conditioning packs running, maybe just for the cockpit.
And the effect at 35,000 feet?
Hypoxia. Lack of oxygen. The time of useful consciousness is incredibly short, maybe a minute, maybe less.
Passenger oxygen masks would drop.
They would drop, yes. But they only provide about 22 minutes of oxygen, chemically generated.
Okay. And the cockpit?
The cockpit has its own much larger oxygen supply, fed from cylinders. And remember...
It had just been topped up before the flight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Enough for one person for about 27 hours.
So the horrific logic is... incapacitate everyone else quickly while the person in control remains conscious on cockpit oxygen for hours.
It's a chilling theory, but it provides a potential explanation for how someone could maintain control of the aircraft for such a long time undisturbed. But again, it's a theory until the wreckage is found.
A deeply disturbing one.
Yeah.
Okay, so if this complex sequence of events was unfolding, why wasn't the plane intercepted? It turned back, flew over Malaysia.
It really seems to be a combination of factors. Misunderstandings, delays.
Like what?
Well, Ho Chi Minh Control, who should have taken over, took about 20 minutes to start asking questions when MH370 didn't check in. Standard is 5 minutes.
Why the delay?
Probably the handover confusion, middle of the night, maybe assuming a communication issue initially.
And Malaysian Airlines' own systems?
Their tracking software at the time apparently relied on predictions when real data stopped. So on their screens, it initially looked like the plane was continuing normally for a bit, adding to the confusion.
What about the military? They saw the turn on primary radar, didn't they?
They did see a turn. But initially, without the context, they assumed it was just an air turn back, a plane returning for technical reasons. Since it didn't seem to violate any new airspace immediately, they didn't scramble jets.
So they didn't realize how strange the path was until later.
Exactly. The true, bizarre nature of the flight path only became clear when they reviewed all the radar recordings afterwards. By then, it was long gone.
Okay, so the plane is dark, flying manually, possibly depressurized. How did investigators even begin to figure out where it went after it left Malaysian radar coverage?
This is where they had to get really creative, using data that was never intended for tracking, primarily the Inmarsat satellite data.
The satellite communication provider, how did that help?
Well, even though ACARS was silent, the SCOM terminal on the plane still tried to automatically connect or handshake with the Inmarsat satellite periodically.
Like a phone checking for signal?
Sort of, yeah. And each time it did this, the satellite recorded the time it took for the signal to go from the satellite to the plane and back.
Okay.
That time measurement is called the burst timing offset, or BTO. Knowing the satellite's position and the signal travel time, you can calculate the distance between the satellite and the plane.
Which gives you a circle on the map.
Exactly. An arc, or a circle, of possible locations for the aircraft at the time of each handshake. There were 7 of these handshakes in total after it went dark.
The famous 7 handshakes.
Those are the ones.
But a circle is still a huge area. Yeah. How did they narrow it down?
They used another piece of data from those handshakes. The burst frequency offset, or BFO.
Right, you mentioned this earlier, the Doppler effect thing.
Exactly, like the ambulance siren changing pitch. The frequency of the signal received by the satellite shifted slightly depending on the plane's movement relative to the satellite.
So it told them if the plane was moving towards or away from the satellite's position, generally north or south.
Essentially, yes. It helped distinguish between the northern and southern parts of those BTO arcs.
That's amazing, using these tiny signal variations.
It really is a remarkable piece of detective work using physics.
And this brings us back to that moment the SC Tancom came back online. 02.25.27.
Yes, almost exactly an hour after the turn near IGRI. Suddenly, the system logs back on, sends a request. That's the first handshake.
And the clue that it had been powered down
was that large frequency error in the BFO value of that first handshake.
The system's clock was cold.
Exactly. The internal crystal oscillator needed time to warm up and stabilize after a significant power interruption. That's how we know the power was likely off until just before 02.25.
Which would fit with that theory of manually shutting everything down, then maybe restoring partial power later.
It fits very well. And interestingly, that first Logan handshake was missing the usual flight and company ID data.
Suggesting
that perhaps after restoring power, someone manually disabled certain communication outputs through the cockpit displays before the SATCOM fully initialized, trying to stay hidden, even after powering back up.
Wow, okay, so we have 7 handshakes, roughly hourly. The last one occurred when?
Around 08.19 Malaysian time. That's about 7 hours and 35 minutes after takeoff.
Which matches the fuel endurance almost perfectly.
Almost exactly. The first and last handshakes were Logan requests, suggesting power interruptions, the first likely deliberate, the last possibly due to fuel exhaustion.
But even with BTO and BFO, the possible routes were numerous, right? That's why the search area was so vast.
Correct. Because the data came from just one satellite, you still had these long arcs. While the BFO helped favor the southern route, it still left an enormous stretch of the southern Indian Ocean.
And the most accepted probable route based on that.
Generally, a turn southwest after passing north of Indonesia near Banda Asia and then heading south deep into the southern Indian Ocean. Experts like Captain Patrick Blelly and Jean-Luc Marchand have done significant work refining plausible paths within that framework.
Okay, now let's shift to this newer, really fascinating potential evidence, WSPR.
Ah, yes. Weak Signal Propagation Reporter. It's quite something.
Developed by a Nobel Prize winner.
Joseph Hooten Taylor Jr., yeah. But for amateur radio use, not for tracking planes originally.
So how does it work? Low power, radio signals.
Extremely low power. Ham radio operators transmit these signals, and receivers all over the world log them. They're designed to see how far these weak signals can travel, bouncing off the ionosphere.
Okay. So where does the plane come in?
Well, the theory is, when one of these radio signals hits a large metal object, like an aircraft, it scatters. It creates a tiny disturbance, an anomaly, in the signal path.
Like a ripple in a pond.
A very faint ripple, yes. And the key thing is there's a massive publicly available database of these WSPR transmissions and receptions going back years, including 2014.
So someone thought, could we find MH370's ripple in this data?
Basically, yes. Richard Godfrey, an engineer, along with colleagues like Dr. Hannes Coetzee and Professor Simon Maskell, started exploring this in 2021.
Using algorithms to sift through all that radio noise.
Exactly. Looking for faint, correlated disturbances along the likely flight path at the right times. They call it a kind of poor man's primary radar.
Does it rely on knowing where the transmitters and receivers are?
Precisely. If you know the transmitter location, the receiver location, and the expected signal path, you can potentially detect when something like an aircraft crosses that path. The advantage is the sheer density of data. Thousands of these signal paths active every 2 minutes.
So what are they claiming they found? This is still debated, right?
It is debated, yes. It's a novel application. But their report from August 2023 claims they have found a WSPR trace consistent with MH370's flight. They emphasize it's based on verifiable stored data. Like refining DNA analysis, the algorithms are getting better.
And does their WSPR trace match the other data?
Initially, yes. It aligns with the primary radar track after the turn back.
Okay. And after it went beyond radar range?
The WSPR trace suggests a turn more westerly near a waypoint VMPI. Then it intercepts the first Inmarsat handshake arc around 02.28, which fits.
Where does it go from there?
It continues towards another waypoint, a Saynob, then seems to make a left turn towards Yurdam. This generally aligns with theories about avoiding military radar in normal airways.
But here's the really interesting part from WSPR, isn't it? It wasn't just a straight line south.
That's the claim. The WSPR data apparently shows a series of turns, always towards existing navigation waypoints, but crucially, not ever on the same airway.
Meaning, still being actively piloted.
That's the implication. Piloted in a way to follow established points, perhaps for navigation, but staying off the standard routes where it couldn't be seen on other aircraft's collision avoidance systems.
Wow. Deliberate avoidance even out there.
That's what the WSPR track suggests.
And then, the strangest part, that figure 8 pattern.
Yes. Between the 6th and 7th handshakes, so right near the end when fuel must have been critically low, the WSPR analysis indicates the aircraft flew a holding pattern, like a figure 8.
An aircraft running on fumes wouldn't just do that on its own.
Absolutely not. It implies a deliberate action by whoever was in control.
Why? Any theories on why someone would do that right at the end?
Pure speculation, of course. But at that point, it would have been daylight, likely clear weather. One thought is maybe they were looking around.
Looking for what?
Perhaps looking for ships or signs of life to ensure the final impact location wouldn't be witnessed or easily found. It's a disturbing interpretation.
Ensuring it vanished completely.
That seems to be the implication of that pattern if the WSPR data is accurate.
Okay, the final moments. The Inmarsat data, the BFO, suggested a very steep descent.
Yes, the last handshake showed BFO values consistent with a rapid rate of descent, maybe as high as 14,500 feet per minute.
So just a nosedive into the ocean?
Not necessarily a straight dive. Captain Blelly and Merchant propose an alternative.
What's that?
They suggest maybe the right engine flamed out first due to fuel starvation.
Okay.
The person in control might have then started the APU for power, opened the fuel crossfeed valve to get every last drop to the left engine, then maybe manually shut down the left engine too to maximize the APU's endurance.
Why maximize APU?
To maintain electrical power to the flight controls, potentially allowing use of flaps for a more controlled ditching or glide.
Is there any evidence for that? APU running at the end?
Well, that last Inmarsat Logan request, the final handshake, it didn't contain data from the in-flight entertainment system.
Which would be turned off if running only on APU power.
Exactly. The IFE system is one of the first things shed during low power states like APU-only operation. It's circumstantial, but it fits.
So the impact could have been a rapid dive near the 7th arc.
Or, according to Bully's calculations, a controlled glide, potentially up to 67 nautical miles further south if they used flaps. The WSPR data potentially points to a final position around 008.19.37.
And we do know, sadly, definitively, that it ended in the ocean.
Yes. We have confirmed debris.
The flaperon.
A flaperon from the right wing found on Reunion Island, and several other pieces found along coastlines in eastern Africa, Mozambique, Madagascar.
Well, certainly from MH370.
The drift analysis confirms it's consistent with originating from that broad area in the southern Indian Ocean.
And some debris came from inside the cabin.
Yes. That suggests the aircraft broke up significantly on impact. It wasn't a gentle ditching, it hit the water hard.
It's just a horrific story, but aviation has learned from it, right? Things have changed.
Absolutely. Huge improvements. Mandatory tracking of commercial flights over remote oceans is much tighter now.
Longer battery life for emergency locator transmitters, the ELTs.
Yep.
And better procedures for air traffic control when a plane does go silent. Lessons were learned.
But the plane itself, MH370, is still out there. Lost.
And that raises the crucial question, doesn't it? Why is it still so important that we keep searching? After 10 years, why push now?
Because we can't just leave it for the families, for aviation safety, for just knowing the truth. That's the core mission here with this deep dive. We wanted to highlight this new information, these credible new theories that have emerged, to maybe help get that search going again.
And there are now these two potential, relatively small, new search areas being proposed.
Right. One based on the analysis by veteran 777 captains Blelly and Merchant using pilot knowledge and the Inmarsat data.
Offering a very plausible endpoint.
And the other based on that WSPR data analysis by Godfrey and his team. Still debated, yes, but improving and pointing to another specific zone.
We're not here saying one is definitely right, one is wrong.
No. We just want to show that the tools, the data, the theories, they exist. There are credible places to look now. There's new hope, refined data, a real reason to act.
The only thing we really want to achieve here is to help get that search started again. So, thinking about all this, what does it mean for how we deal with aviation mysteries in the future? And what's our collective responsibility, really, to find answers? To literally get to the bottom of something like this?